Welcome to Monday's Mental Mistakes. This week we're looking at the MereExposure Effect. The MereExposure Effect is the tendency to have positive attitudes towards those things we are exposed to. That is, simply having contact with something tends to make us favourable towards it. The MereExposure Effect makes us more likely to prefer things that we've been exposed to over similar items that we've had less contact with when all else is equal. Here's a simple example. Have you ever been given a gift that you were initially neutral or even slightly unimpressed with? Something like a t-shirt, a mug, or an ornament. Often, we find that such items tend to grow on us, and if we keep them or use them long enough, we can develop a liking for them. This liking stands in contrast to how we initially felt towards them, and in contrast to how we continue to feel towards different but similar t-shirts, mugs, or ornaments. If you find yourself feeling positively towards things that you have close contact with, then congratulations. You suffer from the MereExposure Effect, like the rest of us. Now, there are a number of other reasons why we tend to form attachments to things we are exposed to. For example, our possessions often have positive associations because we've had good experiences with them. And we also tend to feel good about our purchases because we want to justify our choices. However, a large part of the positive feelings we have towards familiar things and people is due to the MereExposure Effect. The principal way to counter the MereExposure Effect is to recognise that our feelings are not reliable guides to value. That is, that simply feeling positive towards something doesn't mean that that thing is actually more valuable than the alternative. Since the MereExposure Effect works at an emotional level, by relying on rationality when evaluating a thing's value, we can bypass much of its influence. Note that the MereExposure Effect applies to people as well as things. Simply being exposed to someone tends to lead to positive feelings. This effect is independent of whether we have good or bad experiences with them. This is why we tend to inadvertently feel positively towards our co-workers, newsreaders, and celebrities. This is also a factor in people forming attachments to unsuitable partners or abusive family members. One area in which the MereExposure Effect is frequently used is advertising. Well-known brands such as Coca-Cola often use advertising that is almost devoid of any connection to their product, relying instead on your exposure to their brand to produce a positive association. And while there are other effects that need to be considered, it can actually irritate people if the ads are done poorly, simply exposing people to a brand has been shown to be very effective. In conclusion, the MereExposure Effect is the tendency to have positive attitudes towards those things we are exposed to. Until next week, may your mental mistakes be minor.